Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today's video is going to be my labor and delivery story. I do have my baby right here next to me, which I will bring him up in later in the video just because he is sleeping right now. But you guys will meet him here in a little bit. But I just wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about my labor and delivery. I gave birth May 14th at 1:37 p.m. and he was 9 pounds, 2.6 ounces, 22.5 inches long. So he was kind of a big baby. He's kind of shrunk a little bit just because he had a cone head, so he's not as long anymore, but he was a big healthy baby. To start out, I am going to go over my induction. I was induced at 39 weeks because I had gestational diabetes, and with my doctor and where I live, it's pretty common for them to induce you about a week early from your due date, which my due date was May 20th, 2019, and he was born May 14th. So he was a week early and he was 9 pounds. So that kind of makes me wonder of how big he would have been at full term. Anyways, to start out, they wanted me to go to the hospital the night before. So May 13th, I went into my hospital, the women's hospital, and around 10 p.m. And that's when the induction kind of started. I first went in for paperwork, and then I went in around 10 p.m. to start the paperwork, and then I got into my room around 11 o'clock. It took a little while for me to get my IV in, just because I always have difficulties with getting an IV because I have really small veins. This bruise, you can see it, you can't. Let me see if I can reposition you guys. That bruise right there, and I have a whole bunch of other bruises all over me that's gotten better over time, but I still have them. It's hard to see because they're in really weird places. It took a while for them to get an IV in, so around midnight is when everything really started. They gave me some fluids and some antibiotics because I was the strep B positive, so they started my antibiotics every 4 hours, I'm pretty sure. Around midnight is when I also got my first cervical check, which, let me tell you, a cervical check has never been this painful. I got one in the office when I was seeing my OB every week, and it was never painful the way it was in the hospital. Fast forward to 4 a.m. is when they started the Pitocin. I tried sleeping as much as I could, which I only got like just a couple hours of sleep, but they started the Pitocin at 4 a.m. and around 4:45 a.m. is when I started actually feeling some actual stronger contractions. Around 8 a.m. is when they broke my water, and at this point I was only still 5 centimeters dilated. And let me tell you, if you've never given birth before, I've had your water broke. It is extremely uncomfortable and pretty painful. I was in extreme amount of pain when they were doing it, and then afterwards the real contractions hit me, and it was fucking horrible. I did not think that the contractions would be that bad. When I was having contractions before, they were pretty mild, and I thought that was just contractions, and then the real contractions started, and I knew that I was definitely going to be having an epidural, because at that point I did not know if I wanted to do unmedicated or medicated, and I was just going to wait and see how much pain I was in. Definitely get the epidural if you do not do well with pain, which I'm not necessarily bad with pain. I just did not want to be in pain for that long, and I only had about 12 real contractions between my water breaking and me getting an epidural. Around 8:45, 9 o'clock in the morning is when the anesthesiologist came in and gave me my epidural, and it was the weirdest experience I've ever had. He was extremely nice, and the worst part about it is having contractions going through with the epidural. He did not stop for me to have a contraction. They told me to still bend over and this and that while I was contracting, which was pretty bad because you're getting a needle stuck in your back, and it's pretty uncomfortable anyways, and then you're contracting in the process of it. So it was really horrible, but it was worth it at the end because I had a pain-free labor. After I got the epidural and it started kicking in, I fell out of it. I just felt my body just go out of consciousness pretty much. That's how tired I was. That's how much those 12 contractions took out of me. What's wrong? That's how much the 12 contractions like took out of me. Like, that's how tired I was and exhausted, and I didn't get that much sleep anyways. I maybe got like 2-3 hours of sleep, and it was uncomfortable just because I had an IV in. I wasn't in my own bed. Daniel wasn't in bed with me, and I'm so used to sleeping with him, and I was in some amount of pain just from the cervical check and contracting a little bit. So I just fell out of it for a couple of hours, and around 10:30, 11 a.m. they came in to check me again. These times are going to be a little bit like not accurate, just because I was pretty much out of it, trying to write down stuff on my phone while it was happening, but I was such in a daze. I was so tired and everything was going on. So I tried to do my best of writing down the times and stuff like that. So it's just going to be a little bit off, if anything. But around 10:30 or 11, they came in and checked me again. I was 7 centimeters dilated, and after that I went right back to sleep. But I fell back asleep until about noon, and they came back in and checked me again, and I was 10 centimeters dilated. At that point, they said they wanted my hips to widen a little bit more. So they gave me this thing called a peanut. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or anything like that. It's just like a big round thing. It's like oval. I don't know how to explain it, but it's pretty big. They put it in between your legs and lay you on your side, and it's supposed to help kind of like widen your hips a little bit more. And that's what they did for about an hour, and I passed out again to sleep, because usually I sleep with the pillow between my legs anyway, so it was pretty comfortable for me. I fell back asleep until about 1-ish, and then they came back in and said we were going to start pushing pretty soon. And Daniel was actually gone at the time. He went back to our house to let the dogs out, and he came back just in time for me to start pushing. So after getting everything set up, I had a pretty good epidural too, let me say that. I was still able to move my toes and kind of move my legs and bum a little bit, but I absolutely felt nothing. I did not feel when she was checking me. I felt completely numb, and let me tell you, it was pretty great. I would definitely recommend getting an epidural if you just don't want to deal with the pain, because you have to be a strong-ass woman to go full natural of having a baby, because that shit was rough. I mean, I only had about 12 contractions, and my labor went pretty fast, so I couldn't imagine going 30 hours with no pain medication at all. Anyways, around 1:15-ish is when I started pushing. I pushed maybe about 3 or 4 times, and the nurse said I was doing so well that she needed to go get the doctor, because he was already pretty much coming out. You could see his head coming out a little bit, and she went and got my midwife, which my doctor's office had an OB and a midwife, so I got to pretty much choose who I wanted to deliver my baby, which to me didn't really matter, but I see my midwife a lot more through my pregnancy, so I told her I wanted her to deliver, just because I was a little bit more comfortable with her. And she came in a few minutes later, and I pushed like 3 or 4 more times, and he was here, born at 1:37 p.m. So I started pushing around 1:15, and he was here at 1:37, so it wasn't that long at all. I think my total labor time was about 5 or 6 hours. I started becoming active labor around 8:30, 8 o'clock when they broke my water, and then I had him at 1:37, so it wasn't that long at all, which I'm extremely shocked about, because he is my first child, and I was induced, so I think he was just ready to be here. Like I was ready for him to be here. He was a bigger baby. He was born. I don't know if it was my adrenaline, or if I was in shock, or if it was the medication, or all of it combined. I was shaking so bad that he was on my chest for a little bit, and then I told Daniel to hold him the first 20 minutes of his life, because I was shaking so bad I didn't feel comfortable holding him. And I just think my adrenaline was pumping, because I just felt like I was in a different world, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like I was an outsider looking in at all this going on, and Daniel sat next to me and was holding him until they got done stitching me up, and I felt comfortable enough It was about 20 minutes they took about stitching me up. I did have 2 small 2nd-degree tears. Nothing too bad. But after a while, I did finally get to hold him, which I wasn't upset that I couldn't hold him at first, just because, like I said, I didn't even feel like I was there or a real person at that time. I know that sounds weird, but I just felt like my body wanted a shock, because when he came out and they put him on my chest, I was like, wow, this is actually a real baby. This is actually happening. I wasn't in denial of my pregnancy, but it didn't feel real. I never had a baby before that, never had children, so I didn't know what was to come. Like I said, my whole delivery and labor process was about 5-6 hours, and it went pretty quickly, which I'm glad, because I did not want to be there for 30 hours in labor, and I did not want to be there longer than I had to, because I have animals at home I want to get back to, and I'm just glad it went pretty quickly. But now here is, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen pictures of him before, and if you want to, I'm trying to stay more updated on there and stuff like that, which I'm not doing a very good job, but I have a newborn, so I'm getting used to everything, and 4 animals, and taking care of myself and my household, so cut me some slack. I'm trying. But this is Ruger Nelson. He is about, I don't even know how old he is anymore, about 12 days old. It is the 26th, so he's 10, 11, 12 days old today, and he is sweet as can be. He's gonna be squinting a little bit just because it's window is open. He is the sweetest baby I have ever met. He is a really good baby. He gives me about, he gives me a good about 5-6 hours, not 5-6, about 3 to 4 good hours of sleep between feedings a night. He is formula fed right now, just because I tried breastfeeding the first day, and I just wasn't producing anything at all, and I mean nothing, and pretty much he was just hungry all day. And around 2 a.m. That night, I finally gave him formula, just because he was so hungry, and I was feeding him for hours and hours and hours, and he was just, every time I took him off the boob, he would be squalling, because that's how hungry he was. So I gave him formula, and we decided to keep him on formula, just because it would be easier. And Daniel could help out feedings too, so he is formula fed, which I didn't have my heart set on breastfeeding. I just wanted to try it to see if I could do it. It would have been a cheaper option and stuff like that, but I am not upset that he is on formula. It's not a big deal, but he's doing really well on it and everything like that. So let me put him back down, because he's getting fussy. Yeah. But that is about it, guys. Thank you for watching. Let me know where you guys are in your pregnancy journey, or if you gave birth, or a little bit about your labor and delivery story down below. And like I said, follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm going to try to update as much as possible. Sorry I have not uploaded in a little bit. Like I said, he is about 12 days old, and I've been trying to get enough sleep, and last night I got plenty of sleep, and I felt good enough to do this video. So I hope you guys like it, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.